I want to start today in a place we don't always think to go when life feels uncertain. I want to start at the very beginning. Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the opening sentence of the entire Bible. It's a declaration about who God is. Right from the start. Before there were cities, before there were governments, before there were calendars and clocks and complicated human systems. That word beginning talks about the absolute commencement of everything we know. Not just time, not just space, everything that exists, including the conditions that make existence possible, came from this one source. And the first thing the Bible wants us to know about this source is not that he is loving, though he is. It's not that he is merciful, though he is that too. The first thing the Bible tells us about God is that he creates. He is an originator. He brings into being what was not there before. Now look at Genesis 1 verse 2. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. This is fascinating to me. Before anything good showed up, before light, before land, before life, God was already there. The earth was formless. It was empty. It was dark. And God didn't panic. He didn't back away. He didn't say, "This is too far gone." He hovered. He was present right in the middle of what looked like nothing. I think about that word hovering a lot. It carries this idea of something brooding over, caring for, remaining close to. It's the same image of a bird hovering over its nest, guarding what's inside before it's ready to emerge. So even in the void, even in the formless and the dark, God wasn't absent. He was attentive. He was present and aware, and already working on what was coming next. I need you to stay with that image for a moment. Because what the creation account is really showing us before we even get to the first day of creation is that God is right there in the middle of the chaos, already thinking about what comes next. And then God speaks. Verse 3. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. I've read this verse hundreds of times, but there's something I want you to notice. God didn't gather materials first. He didn't consult anyone. He didn't work something up slowly. He simply said it, and it was. That's not just impressive. That tells us something specific about the nature of his control. His control is the kind that operates at the level of origin. He doesn't just steer what already exists. He brings into existence what he determined should be. Now, as we walk through the creation account, I want you to notice something. Day 1, God creates light. Day 2, he separates the waters. Day 3, he gathers the seas and brings forth the land. And at each stage, the text says the same thing. And God saw that it was good. He's evaluating. He's intentional. He's checking his own work. This is purposeful, structured, intentional work. God isn't winging it. He has an idea in his mind, and he's executing it step by step. By day 6, God creates human beings. And this time, the language shifts slightly. For light, he said, "Let there be." For the dry land, he said, "Let the earth bring forth." But for human beings, he said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness." There's a personal involvement here that wasn't used for the rest of creation. He's not just speaking something into existence from a distance. He's saying, let us make, as if this is something he's going to be directly involved in forming. And we know from Genesis 2 that he formed us from the dust of the ground and breathed his own life into our nostrils. That's intimate. That's personal. That's not the kind of God who makes something and then walks away. And at the end of the 6th day, the Bible says God saw everything he had made, the full picture, and it was not just good, it was very good. That word very is important. It marks a distinction. The completed whole, including the human beings he had placed at the center of it, was very good. Now, I've taken you through the creation account today because I want to establish something that I think a lot of us have heard but haven't quite settled in our understanding. The God who made everything from nothing, is the same God who is involved in your specific life right now. I know that sounds like something you've heard before, But I want to sit with it in a different way today, because I think many of us live as if God is in control of the big picture, but maybe not of our particular details. We believe He manages the cosmos. We believe He keeps the universe spinning. But when it comes to our own story, our finances, our health, our relationships, our future, we quietly wonder if He's paying close enough attention. I've been there. I remember a season in my own life where things had unraveled in a way I didn't expect. A situation I thought was settled turned out to not be settled at all. Something I had trusted, something I had even prayed over, had fallen apart. And I wasn't angry at God, but I was confused. I found myself thinking, maybe God is handling the bigger things, and I just got missed in this particular moment. That thought felt humble. It felt appropriately small, but it wasn't actually true. Because the same God who said, "Let there be light," and light appeared, He doesn't operate on a hierarchy of importance where some things get His full attention and others get a fraction. The creation account shows us a God who is thorough, who evaluates and adjusts, who notices whether something is good or not. That's the nature of who He is. That carries into everything, including your life right now. Colossians 1 verse 17 says something that I think we need to stay with. He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. Not He started all things, not He created all things, and now they run on their own. In Him all things hold together. The galaxies are actively being held in their position by the same God who made them. Your cells are held together by the same sustaining presence that has been there since the beginning. Now I want to take that thought somewhere specific. If God is the one holding all things together, then the circumstances in your life are not outside His awareness. They are inside His jurisdiction. When the creation story unfolds in Genesis 1, there is a progression. There is an order. Light before life. Land before animals. Structure before habitation. God doesn't just create randomly. He creates in an order that makes sense, where each thing prepares the conditions for the next. That's how He works in our lives, too. Not always in a way that makes sense to us while it's happening. But there is a sequence in God's work. There is intention behind what comes first and what comes after. I've watched this in my own life over the years, and it's never been as obvious in the moment as it becomes later. There were things I needed to walk through before I was ready for what came after. There were delays that weren't about God forgetting me. They were about God building something in me that had to exist before the next thing could hold. Genesis 1 verse 5 says, "And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day." Notice something. The day begins with evening. That means the first part of a day, in God's order, is the dark part. The rest comes after. The light comes after. God built that rhythm into creation itself. Night first, then morning. I don't think that's accidental. I think that's instructive. In God's order, the dark period is not an interruption to the day. It's the beginning of it. A lot of us are waiting for morning before we believe God is at work. But the structure of creation tells us that He's already been working since the evening. The morning is coming because of what happened in the dark. Psalm 33 verse 11 says, "The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of His heart to all generations." Plans of His heart. That's personal language. He has plans that come from His heart. That means they're shaped by care, not just by strategy. There's a verse in Job, a small verse in chapter 23, where Job says something incredibly honest. "But He knows the way that I take. When He has tested me, I will come out as gold." Job is not saying he understands what's happening. He says explicitly that he's looked for God and can't find Him. But he says, even though I can't locate Him right now, He knows where I am. That distinction is important. It's not that God is lost to us. It's that sometimes we are in a season where we can't feel or detect Him clearly, but He still knows our path. He still knows exactly where we are. I think that's one of the most honest things in the Bible. God being in control doesn't mean you will always have a clear sense of His presence. It means that His awareness of you never lapses, even when your awareness of Him does. Going back to Genesis 1, I want to look at something in verse 16. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. That last phrase, "and the stars," is almost parenthetical. The sun and the moon get a whole sentence of description. And then the stars, which number in the billions, get 3 words. And the stars. There's something grounding about that. The billions of stars that have fascinated astronomers for centuries are in the Genesis account almost a side note, not because they're unimportant, but because to God, the act of making them doesn't require a long explanation. He just did it. And I think about that when I consider the complexity of my own life. The things that feel enormous to me. The things I've stayed up thinking about. The things that have taken years to work through. They are not too complicated for the God who made the stars as a side note. That's not a dismissal of what you're going through. I'm not saying your problems are small. I'm saying the one who is with you in them is extraordinarily large. There's a verse in Isaiah 40 that ties this together so well. After describing God as the one who measures the waters in the hollow of his hand, who marked off the heavens with a span, who holds the dust of the earth in a measure, after all of that, Isaiah 40 verse 28 and 29 says, "Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint. And to him who has no might, he increases strength." The God who is beyond our comprehension in terms of his power, this same God turns that power toward those who are weak. That's the connection. It's not just about magnitude, it's about where he directs that magnitude. He could sustain a galaxy and also sustain you. He could hold the earth in its orbit and also hold you in yours. These things are not in competition for his attention. I want to talk about something that I think quietly troubles a lot of people. The question of, if God is in control, then why do things go wrong? This is a real question. It deserves a real answer. I've sat with people in moments of real loss, real pain, and I've learned that this question doesn't always need to be argued with. Sometimes it just needs to be held honestly. I don't think the Bible tells us that God controls everything, in the sense that he causes everything. There's a difference between sovereignty and causation. God being sovereign means that nothing falls outside his ability to respond, to redeem, to work with. It doesn't necessarily mean that he is the author of every painful thing that enters your life. Creation itself tells us this. God made a world with real structure, real laws, real consequences. He made a world with genuine freedom, which means genuine weight. But what sovereignty means, what it has always meant, is that no circumstance in your life is beyond his reach or beyond his ability to bring something meaningful through it. The loss doesn't surprise him. The detour doesn't derail his ability to still bring you to where he intends. Romans 8 verse 28 says, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose." This isn't a promise that everything will be pleasant. It's a promise that God is actively working with all of it, even the parts that weren't good in themselves, towards something he has in mind for you. Work together is a process word. It implies ongoing activity. It's not saying everything that happened was good. It's saying God is in the business of working things together toward good. He's still creating, not in the Genesis sense of making something from nothing, but in the sense that he's still forming, still shaping, still bringing order where there was chaos. That is who he is. That is what creation tells us he does. I think about Genesis 1 again specifically, the sequence of evening and morning across all 6 days. Each day ends with something finished. Each day begins with something not yet done. And God doesn't seem to be in a hurry. He doesn't do all 6 days in one moment. He works through a process. He works through time. He allows each day to be complete before moving to the next. I've had to learn that God is not always going to compress my process into my preferred timeline. There was a season where I was frustrated by what felt like slowness. I had prayed. I had done what I knew to do, and things were still moving at a pace that felt like nothing was happening. But looking back, I can see what was happening in that slow season. Things were being built in me that couldn't have been built any faster without breaking. Character doesn't rush. Trust doesn't rush. Real depth doesn't rush. The Genesis 1 God, this God who could have made everything in a single instant, but chose to work through 6 ordered days, is not in a hurry the way we are. His patience is not indifference. It's thoroughness. Now I want to look at one more thing in the creation account that I think is rich for this conversation. Genesis 1 verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day. At the end of all 6 days, God reviews the whole thing. And what he sees, the complete picture with all its parts and their relationships to each other, is very good. Not just each individual part, the whole. The way the light relates to the land, the way the waters relate to the atmosphere, the way the creatures relate to the environment, the way human beings are placed within it all. It's not that every part is good in isolation. It's that God looks at how everything works together and calls the whole thing very good. I think he looks at our lives the same way. The individual chapters of our lives don't always look good on their own. Some chapters have been very hard. Some parts of our story have been painful. But God is not evaluating chapter 1 without chapter 6. He sees the complete arc, and what he sees, when he looks at the whole of what he's doing in and through your life, is something he can call very good. This is rooted in who he is, a God who can take formless void and make ordered creation out of it. That same God can take the broken and unfinished parts of your life and bring something real from them. Psalm 57 verse 2 says, I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills his purpose for me. Not who had a purpose for me once, not who will eventually get around to it. Who is, right now, fulfilling that purpose, even in the seasons that don't look like progress. There's something I've come to believe after years of watching God work, both in my own life and in the lives of people I've walked with. His control is not the kind that removes all difficulty. It's the kind that ensures that no difficulty has the final say. The darkness in Genesis 1 wasn't destroyed. It was given a boundary. God called the light day and the darkness night. He didn't eliminate the night. He gave it its place and said this far and no further. That's what his sovereignty looks like in practice. Not that every hard thing disappears the moment you trust him, but that every hard thing has a God-assigned limit. And beyond that limit, morning is waiting. I want to speak to the person today who has been in their own Genesis 1 verse 2 moment. The season where things feel formless, where there's no clear shape to your life, where the void is real and the darkness is heavy. The Spirit of God was hovering over that exact kind of situation before he ever said, let there be light. He was there first. He was present in the void before anything good showed up. And if he was present then, in that original darkness, in that original emptiness, he is present in yours. Not about to show up. Already there. Already hovering. Already at work on what's next. I've sat in seasons like that. Seasons where I couldn't see anything clearly, and I couldn't feel much. And what kept me wasn't a formula or a system. It was just the slowly held conviction that the God who made everything from nothing hadn't run out of ability in my particular case. He's the same God. He hasn't changed between Genesis 1 and your current situation. The power that created light out of darkness, that power is present. Hebrews 13 verse 8 says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. The same, not similar, not comparable. The same. The God who hovered over the formless deep is hovering over whatever formless situation is in front of you right now. He is actively present in what you're in. And his intention, as it was in the beginning, is to bring order, to bring light, to bring life. Psalm 138 verse 8 says, The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not forsake the work of your hands. That last line, do not forsake the work of your hands. That's David praying to God and reminding him, you made me. I am your work. Don't let that go unfinished. And the foundation of that prayer is, your steadfast love endures forever. He's not just appealing to God's power, he's appealing to his love. Because the reason God sees things through is not just because he's capable. It's because he cares about what he started. Philippians 1 verse 6 carries the same thought. And I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. He who began it will bring it to completion. The same God who started is the same God who finishes. The work is not going to be abandoned halfway through. He is the God of completion, and the creation account confirms this. Every day he begins something, and every day it's finished. Evening and morning. Evening and morning. He doesn't start days. He doesn't finish. He didn't leave the light in a half-formed state and move on to the next thing. He didn't abandon the ocean on day 3 because something more interesting came along on day 4. He finished what he started, every single day. That's the kind of God you're dealing with. Not one who begins and loses interest, not one who starts and then gets distracted. He completes what he begins. And if he began something in you and he did, then completion is not in question. The only question is when, and the only answer is, in his time, in the right order, after the right preparation. Now I want to address something that sits just below the surface. For a lot of us, we know God is in control intellectually. We've held that belief for a long time. But when something specific doesn't go the way we believed it would, there's a moment of real internal tension. You prayed about that thing, you believed for it, and it didn't happen. At least not yet. And now you're holding two things at once. A belief that God is in control, and a lived experience that doesn't currently reflect what you thought that control would produce. I think we do ourselves a disservice when we try to resolve that tension too quickly. Sometimes the honest thing is to say, I don't fully understand what I'm in, but I don't need to understand it fully in order to trust the one who does. There's a difference between blind faith and honest faith. Blind faith says everything is fine and refuses to look at reality. Honest faith looks at reality clearly and still chooses to believe that God hasn't lost the thread. You don't have to pretend your life is less complicated than it is in order to trust God. You can bring the full weight of your situation to him and still believe he's big enough to carry it. Because he is. He made everything from nothing. He made order from chaos. He hovered over the deep before any light existed. He is not overwhelmed by what you're carrying. He's not trying to figure out what to do with your situation. He already knows. He's already working. And I want to close with this. One of the most quietly profound things about the creation account is what happens on the seventh day. Genesis 2, verse 2 and 3. And on the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. God rested, not because he was tired, a God who doesn't faint or grow weary. According to Isaiah 40, didn't rest on the seventh day because he needed to recover. He rested because the work was complete, because there was nothing left to add. The rest was not absence, it was satisfaction. And I believe God is inviting us into that same rest when it comes to his control over our lives. Not passive rest where we do nothing, but an internal rest where we stop fighting the need to hold everything together ourselves. A rest that says he knows he's working. He has never yet started something he didn't finish. And so I don't have to carry the weight of my own life on my own. Matthew 11, verse 28 and 29 says, Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Rest for your souls. Not rest from work. Rest for the deep interior place in you that has been straining and striving to make sense of everything. That's a different kind of rest. And it's available to you right now, in this season, whether things are resolved or not. Because the rest isn't based on your circumstances being settled. It's based on knowing who is in charge of them. The same God who said, "Let there be light," into the darkness, is still speaking into whatever is unformed or unclear in your life. The same God who evaluated every day's work and called it good is evaluating yours. The same God who hovered over the void is hovering over what feels empty to you right now. He is in control in the way of a creator who made you personally, breathed life into you personally, and has plans for you that he has never abandoned. That is who you belong to, and that is enough. Now let us pray. Father, I want to bring this to you today in a very direct and honest way. There are people watching this right now who have been carrying something heavy for a long time. Not days, not weeks, but some of them have been in a hard season for years. And God, I'm not going to tell them that it's all going to be easy from here, but I am going to remind you and remind them of who you are. You are the God of Genesis 1. You are the one who looked at formless and void and saw potential, not impossibility. You are the one who was already there before the light came. And right now, in this moment, I'm asking you to make that real to the person listening, not as a concept, not as a theological position, but as a lived knowing, something they feel in the deepest place in them. God, for the person who is staring at something that looks like nothing is happening, remind them that you hover before you speak, that your presence precedes your breakthrough, that the fact that they can't see anything yet doesn't mean you are not already there. For the person who has a situation that looks formless and complicated, I ask you to speak over it the same way you spoke in the beginning. You don't need materials to work with. You spoke and things came into being. Speak into what is broken and formless, and let something come together that only you could have assembled. For the person who is tired of waiting, Father, give them the kind of rest that Jesus was talking about. Not the rest of giving up, but the rest of trust, the rest of knowing that someone more capable than them has this situation in hand. I ask that you let them genuinely feel that they are not forgotten, that they are not a secondary concern, that they are the work of your hands, and you don't abandon what you have made. God, speak to every evening that someone is currently in. Remind them that in your order, morning follows evening, not the other way around. They are not stuck in the dark. The dark is just the first part of a new day. You are already forming, and I ask for faith to be strengthened today. Not a blind faith that ignores reality, but a real faith that looks at what is hard and still says, He's not done. He hasn't lost the thread. He who began a good work will complete it. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever, and you will not forsake the work of your hands. We trust you, even when we're confused, even when it hurts, even when we don't understand. We trust you because of who you are, and who you have always been since the very beginning. Be near to every person who is watching today. Do what only you can do, and let there be light. In Jesus' name, amen.